I've been really enjoying this book, Thriving in Babylon, by a pastor down in North Coast San Diego called Larry Osborne. And in this book, he talks about what we talked about this last weekend in church. How can Christians live in a non-Christian society, really? And he has some fascinating insights. But I really appreciate one of the things he says about politics. He says, many of us have replaced our passionate hope in Jesus with a passionate hope in politics. And it's taken our eyes off Jesus and put our hope in that which can't deliver. Many pastors and leaders have jumped on the political bandwagon in the last few years. They saw it as the best way to shape society and save America. Yet despite all of these impressive political victories, the moral fiber of our country has continued to deteriorate. He says, while that might be a legitimate cause for disappointment, it's not a cause for despair, because if our hope is firmly rooted in Jesus, we have far more to rejoice in than to be anguished about, because Jesus' promise to build his church is still in play. The methods of the flesh, the methods of this world will have to be set aside, exchanged for the methods of the Spirit: prayer, obedient living, loving our enemies, faithfully proclaiming the gospel. These are the weapons that the Jewish people living in Babylon used. These are the weapons Daniel used. So did the early church in Acts, and so can we. Now listen to this. He says, now having said all this, I want to make it perfectly clear that I'm not saying politics are unimportant, and I'm not saying Christians should stay out of politics. We live in a democracy. To neglect that right would be foolhardy. I'm simply stating it's a tragic miscalculation to place our hope in political solutions. At the end of the day, no matter how many elections we might win or how many laws we might pass, political power is fleeting because the tide always changes. It's the church in all of its local manifestations that Jesus said he would build and sustain. When it comes to raising up a generation of Daniels, men and women with Daniel-like hope and courage while living in Babylon, the only thing that will work in the long run is the same thing that's worked for the last 2 millennia: the local church. Despite all of its flaws, whenever a group of Christians gathers together for prayer, worship, teaching, and accountability, Jesus promises to show up. I love that because it reminds me, while I need to be involved in politics, I can't place my hope in politics, and I can't let my hopes be dashed if my candidate or my law didn't win the day. My hope needs to be in Jesus Christ as I live in a culture that's increasingly post-Christian. I hope that makes sense to you, and I hope that we as a church can demonstrate love in the Babylon in which we live. Think about that. God bless you. Have a great day.